DRC court sentences 30 people to death for involvement in fight between rival Muslim groups. And Tanzania following up on COVID-19 vaccines available in other countries to consider importation. Hello and a warm welcome to Africa Live. I am Peninah Karibe, also coming up this hour. An innovator in Kenya churning out electric three-wheeled vehicles to help cut down on pollution from fuels. In sports, Uganda hopeful of successful Olympics with increased number of athletes. Tensions continue to escalate between Israel and Palestine as the conflict goes into the seventh day. Israel bombed the home of Hamas's chief in Gaza early on Sunday. At least 3 Palestinians were killed. Palestinians fired rockets towards Tel Aviv, causing people to flee to bomb shelters. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has vowed he will continue to respond forcefully to rocket attacks. Nearly 150 people have been killed in Gaza since the battle began on Monday. Israel has reported 10 dead. On Saturday, Israel destroyed a tower block in Gaza housing the offices of the Associated Press and other media outlets. It said the building was also used by the Hamas group. We have our correspondent Nur Harazin joining us live now from Gaza. Nur, what is the latest from there?
Well, the situation is getting really worse here in the Gaza Strip. Every day we wake up and we say that this was one of the most horrific nights. However, it seems like every day that passes, things become more tough for the people of Gaza. Tonight was one of the hardest and most terrifying. We kept hearing Israeli, continuous Israeli bombings. There was more than 100 Israeli airplanes raids on the Gaza Strip and particularly Gaza City this night. The Israeli warplanes also targeted central Gaza City with several missiles, and we're talking about Al-Wahda Street, which is one of the most basic and most densely populated streets in Gaza. This street links eastern Gaza and northern and southern Gaza with Al-Shifa Hospital, which is Gaza's biggest medical compound. This street's infrastructure was totally destroyed. The Israeli warplanes targeted the road and also several buildings that were destroyed on the heads of its residents. According to the Palestinian medical sources, only in this attack, in Al-Wahda Street attack that happened today at dawn, more than 26 people were reported killed, including 10 women and 8 children. This brings up the death toll here in Gaza over the past 6 days up to 181 Palestinians killed, including 52 children and 33 women, while more than 1,200 were reported injured.
All right, Nur Harazin live for us in Gaza. Many thanks, Nur. So let's go live now to Sderot on the Gaza border, where our correspondent Stephanie Freed is standing by. Stephanie, Israel's Benjamin Netanyahu says he will continue to respond forcefully to rocket attacks, but there are also a lot of reactions from around the world on yesterday's hits on Gaza by Israel. What else can you tell us about from the Israeli side?
Well, you know, you were saying Benjamin Netanyahu said the operation will continue. And indeed, on Saturday night, he addressed the nation. And he said that there won't be a ceasefire, not for the time being. As well, he called this a just and moral operation. That's how he referred to it. Also, Prime Minister Netanyahu accused Hamas of hiding behind civilians to carry out strikes on Israel and said that Israel is doing its utmost to minimize civilian casualties. At the same time, of course, the world is seeing civilian casualty death toll mount in Gaza, including dozens of children. You know, among the Israeli military figures, the chief military figures, the government, again, they say that this will continue. This operation will continue overnight and on Saturday and then overnight between Saturday and Sunday. There were heavy strikes on what Israel says were various targets in Gaza, as well an ongoing barrage of rocket fire onto Israel from Gaza. There was somewhat of a lull Sunday morning, and then I'd say in the past hour, rocket fire has started up again from Gaza onto Israel's cities, and Israel continues striking. They say that they hit, again, they're hitting a Hamas underground network, and that they've hit just under a dozen rocket launchers.
So the UN Security Council is expected to meet to discuss the situation in Israel and the Gaza Strip. How is Israel reacting to all the diplomatic efforts underway to try and de-escalate the conflict?
Well, again, I mean, the word from Israel and the directive right now is no ceasefire, despite the fact that the U.S. State Department dispatched an envoy to Israel. Israel's not, the objectives that apparently they want to achieve in this operation, they say they haven't achieved just yet. There is tremendous and mounting pressure, especially now on Sunday as the UN Security Council does meet to discuss this violent latest flare-up. But again, Israel's government is not backing down. They're not calling a ceasefire. There is sort of on the imminent horizon, though, talk of a ceasefire within the coming days. We're just waiting, as is the world, to understand from Israel, from Israel's leaders, when that ceasefire will be, when they'll back down, when some sort of agreement will be struck.
All right, Stephanie Fried from the Gaza border, many thanks. Now, the Associated Press and Al Jazeera have both condemned the Israeli military's airstrike on the building housing their Gaza offices.
We are shocked and horrified that the Israeli military would target and destroy the building housing AP's bureau and other news organizations in Gaza. They've long known the location of our bureau and knew journalists were there. This is an incredibly disturbing development. We narrowly avoided a terrible loss of life.
We have every reason to doubt whether Israel has the right to attack a building like this.
Al Jazeera has issued a statement condemning Israel's actions in the strongest terms. It says the Israeli airstrike is clearly an attempt to prevent journalists from reporting on what was happening in Gaza. AFP's global news director says he is deeply shocked by Israel's actions, while the executive director of the U.S. Committee to Protect Journalists has demanded Israel provide detailed and documented justification for the attack. Now, in Gaza, people have gathered at the funeral of two local families after they were killed in Israeli airstrikes on Saturday. The families were in a 5-floor residential house in a refugee camp, which was destroyed in the attack. Our correspondent Noor Harazin went to the scene and met with a father who lost his 4 children.
Hundreds of Palestinians in Gaza participated in the funeral of the Al-Hadidi and Abu Hatab family members who were killed by an Israeli airstrike in western Gaza Strip. According to Palestinian medical sources, 10 people were killed. 2 of them were women. 8 were children aged between 5 and 14. Civil defense teams continue the search for survivors under the rubble. CGTN met with Mohammed Al-Hadidi, the father of 4 children who were killed in the airstrike. He also lost his wife. Al-Hadidi said his wife took the children out for an Eid al-Fitr visit to their aunt's home, and they decided to spend the night there, but they were killed.
They were just innocent children who were asleep, did not commit anything against Israel. All 4 of my children and my wife were killed in the bombing of the house tonight. I ask God for mercy for them. They died as martyrs.
5-month-old Omar Al-Hadidi was the only survivor of the Israeli raid on the house. The Palestinian Health Ministry Undersecretary said the child was wounded in the leg, and he is a living miracle from the ruins.
Only this child, with severe injuries, escaped from this crime, to be a witness to this crime, and to judge the world and humanity. This crime is not the first, but it must be the last. The whole world must stand up and stop this attack.
Al-Shati is the third largest refugee camp in the Palestinian territories, with a population of 85,000 registered refugees. With so many people packed into such a small area, any Israeli attack on the camp could cause many casualties. The Palestinian Health Ministry says more than 30 people were wounded in the same attack. Nur Harazin, CGTN, Gaza.
UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has also voiced concerns over the conflict. It was in response to an Israeli airstrike overnight, which killed 10 people in the same family, including children, at the Al-Shati refugee camp in Gaza. Guterres says he is dismayed by the civilian casualties. He also says he is deeply disturbed by Israel's airstrike on a building containing international media outlets. He has reminded all sides that any indiscriminate targeting of civilian and media structures violates international law and must be avoided at all costs. The UN Security Council will hold an emergency open meeting on the escalating violence later today. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi says the priority is to immediately stop the violence between Israel and Palestine. Wang says the cause of the current situation is the prolonged failure to find a solution to the Palestinian issue. He says the resolutions made by the UN Security Council on the peace process for the Middle East have not been effectively implemented. He has stressed the continued violation of the rights of the Palestinians to build an independent country. Wang also says China has promoted the UN Security Council to hold emergency consultations on the conflict twice, but he says the body has not yet reached an agreement as the U.S. stands on the opposite side of international justice. Wang says China would chair an open debate on the conflict at the Security Council meeting later today and hopes the Council will reach a unanimous decision. Earlier this week, the U.S. vetoed a statement agreed on by all 14 other Security Council members. Saudi Arabia is today hosting an emergency meeting of foreign ministers from Islamic countries. Ministers of the 57-nation Organization of Islamic Cooperation will discuss what they are calling the Israeli aggression in the Palestinian territory, particularly violence in the vicinity of Al-Aqsa Mosque, according to a statement by the OIC carried by the Saudi press agency. Let's bring in CGTN's Adel Mahroui live for us from Cairo. Adel, what more can you tell us about the OIC meeting chaired by Saudi Arabia and the sensitive issue of the Al-Aqsa Mosque?
So this is an organization, an international organization of all Islamic states in the world. It's mainly from Asia and Africa. There are about 57 nations in this organization, making it the second largest international organization after the United Nations. Saudi Arabia, as you've mentioned, has called for this emergency meeting on the level of the foreign ministers to discuss the escalations in Israel and its attacks against Gaza, specifically with the developments of the Sheikh al-Jarrah incident, where an East Jerusalem neighborhood is being evicted from its Palestinian residents forcibly. So there is a move from the Arab world, now namely Saudi Arabia is trying to get a bigger understanding or a bigger support after the Arab League held its emergency meeting and condemned the Israeli movement. Now Saudi Arabia is trying to get bigger reaction from the entire Islamic world against what is going on to the Palestinians and the devastations they've been living through for a week now. This comes at a time where the Arab world has been seeing unprecedented movements on the popular level and on the governmental level in support for Israel, for the Palestine and the residents in Gaza, which has been an unprecedented popular and governmental support seen in many years, in many previous years, no matter how tough the situation is. This is maybe one of the most evidential awakening for Arab nations and Arab people to stand in support with Palestine.
The combination of the attempted eviction of Palestinians from their homes in East Jerusalem with its timing during the holy month of Ramadan has created public fury in the Muslim world. Muslim clerics, among them the Grand Imam of Al-Azhar, the biggest Islamic university in the world, have condemned the latest developments, dedicating the weekly Friday prayer to Jerusalem. Scores protested across the globe in one of the biggest popular awakenings towards Palestine seen in recent years.
The Arab reaction outside Palestine was very important. We've noticed that after 73 years of Nakba Day, Arab protesters tried to breach the borders of Jordan, Lebanon and Syria. Such a movement was not notable during the past 10 years.
On the diplomatic level, the Arab League held an emergency meeting strongly condemning the Israeli attacks. Egypt sent a security delegation to Israel in hopes to reach a ceasefire. The United States, Turkey and Qatar too started their own mediation efforts.
Since the first moment that attacks spurred, Egypt rushed to prevent escalations, hoping to avoid the destruction and death we are seeing now. Egypt and Jordan are trying to get the Security Council resolution that doesn't face an American veto. The Arab League stance is rather feeble. We are sad to see the Arab nation normalizing ties with Israel that soon. It's a disappointing stance from them. They look for their own benefits, hoping to buy defense systems from Israel, which primitive rockets from Gaza are breaching.
While the military escalation appears to be heading to its peak, Arab humanitarian assistance flows. Jordan is sending shipments of medical supplies, while Egypt's only outlet to Gaza, the Rafah Passage, is open to receive those injured from the Israeli airstrikes. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi ordered local hospitals to treat Palestinians for free.
The Palestinian death toll increases every day. More than 140 lives were lost in the first week and many more injured. This is the heaviest Israeli attack on Gaza in years, the intensity of which has sparked the strongest Arab and Muslim reaction seen in years, probably surpassing that when the United States relocated its Israel embassy to Jerusalem. Adil Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
Coming up to 18 minutes into the hour, you're watching Africa Live. Let's take a quick break. Straight ahead. DRC court sentences 30 people to death for involvement in fight between rival Muslim groups. And Tanzania following on COVID-19 vaccines available in other countries to consider importation for Tanzanians.
Africa is a continent of diversity, with varied climate and enchanting geography, and a people so distinct, but with a shared enduring spirit. We are at the heart of the continent to bring you the untold stories.
Let's have a look.
We celebrate Africa as it shapes its own destiny.
Tunis, Cairo, Juba, Johannesburg, Ethiopia, Tanzania.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Nigeria is my home. 160 million vibrant, ambitious individuals constantly seeking the perfect self-expression. It is these people who inspired me to be that person that is seen, to be a voice that is heard, and ultimately to be the anchor that I am. I have to tap in, tune in, and turn on the very best qualities within me to deliver the news. I'm Richard Ntah, an anchor for CGTN.
A court in the Democratic Republic of Congo has sentenced 30 people to death for participating in a fight that left one police officer dead on Thursday. The fight broke out in the capital Kinshasa between two rival Muslim groups over the right to celebrate Ramadan at the city's main stadium. CGTN's Christo Chamringa has more from Kinshasa.
The Kinshasa District Court found 30 suspects guilty and sentenced them to death. 5 of them were acquitted of the charges. Rival Muslim factions fought over the right to mark Ramadan at the stadium. A policeman was killed and several other people were injured in the violence. A police vehicle was also burnt in the clashes. The two Muslim factions have had a long-running rivalry over the leadership of the Islamic community in Congo. Muslims make up about 10% of the DRC population, and most of them are found in the east of the country. The death penalty handed down by the court comes 18 years after the DRC government temporarily prohibited them. Since then, death sentences were commuted to life imprisonment. Chris Sochamringa, CGTN, Kinshasa, Democratic Republic of Congo.
South Africa's cabinet has extended the country's national state of disaster provisions until mid-June. The extension, which is the country's third, comes at a time when COVID-19 cases, including those of the new Indian variant, have been rising daily. Angela Kupla has more on this story.
The national state of disaster extension allows the government to introduce more stringent lockdowns. However, officials are yet to announce if such measures will be imposed, despite the increase in daily infections.
We're a little bit worried about Gauteng. There is an emerging uptick, and it's more in the the more rural parts of Gauteng that there's this uptick.
That rise in COVID-19 cases isn't good news for local businesses, as it comes soon after two of the biggest tourism source markets banned their nationals from visiting South Africa.
I'm going to issue a challenge that, I do think that the U.S. officials that are here in this country, they need to come out and tell us what is the logic behind this ban. We can't continue to have this type of ban. Same goes to UK. I don't understand what is the logic behind it.
The ban has had a devastating effect on the tourism sector.
We've lost 61% of our business year on year during the pandemic. And we really don't see that at the moment. Until those source markets reopen, that's not going to come through. So the real effect of that is that we've got to try and reduce costs, but there's no ways that I can reduce costs by 61%. So we really are, with our service providers, the people that we operate with and our staff, we communicate that message, and we've got to see it through as a team, and we will get there.
Tourism operators quickly learned that communication is critical, especially with the international tour operators and agents who book tourists to visit local resorts.
If you phone your traditional service suppliers, none of them are working there. They're different people, etc. We've consistently kept contact now with the various operations, renewing who the contact people are, where they are, so that when the buttons do get switched on, I think we'll be in a much better position to be able to receive preferred business.
Domestic tourism is picking up some of the spare capacity, but operators have warned that this trend is not sustainable.
But I think people also understand that it is the pandemic, so our rack rates have not changed, but we do offer the discounts in time frames. So if people look at our website, they'll see the prices, and we'll normally overlay it with a discount. At the moment, we're discounting most of our rates by approximately 40% for the local market.
There's no question there's still going to be some more casualties from the COVID virus. The question now is whether companies and businesses will be able to pivot and find solutions. I'm Angelo Coppola for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Tanzania's President Samia Suluhu Hassan says the government is following up on COVID-19 vaccines that are available in other countries to see if they can be ordered for Tanzanians. The president made this statement while addressing a meeting coordinated by the National Muslim Council of Tanzania in Dar es Salaam. CGTN's Isaac Lukando has more.
Tanzania's President Samia Suluhu Hassan has given the strongest indication yet that her government may be considering procuring COVID-19 vaccines in the near future. In an address to the nation, she said this comes as a result of the continued threat of COVID-19 around the world.
COVID-19 has affected the entire world. In order to fight against it, we have to join other countries in fighting the pandemic.
President Samia says while a decision to procure vaccines has not yet been made, citizens' concerns about their safety will be taken into consideration.
You have warned on COVID-19 vaccines, and I take that. One thing I want to assure you is your government is listening and will take action. We won't just receive everything they give us. As far as the vaccines are concerned, we will follow up and make sure they are suitable for our people.
Setting up a COVID-19 committee And considering the importation of vaccines may be viewed by some as a departure from her predecessor's stance, the late President Dr. John Magufuli had expressed reservations about COVID-19 vaccines, citing concerns about their safety. As Tanzanians await a final decision on the procurement of the vaccines, President Samia has asked the nation to continue taking precautions against COVID-19. Isaac Lukando, CGTN, Dar es Salaam.
Let's turn to Senegal, where Chinese-donated COVID-19 vaccines arrived on Friday. The shipment included doses of the Sinopharm vaccine. In a ceremony, the Chinese ambassador to Senegal, Xiao Han, signed for the donation. The event took place in the presidential palace in the presence of President Macky Sall. The Chinese ambassador reaffirmed the strong cooperation between both countries.
It is a great pleasure and honor to be received in audience by His Excellency Macky Sall, the President of the Republic of Senegal. I signed an important document of the Chinese donation on behalf of our government. We touched on the friendship and cooperation between China and Senegal, and the Senegalese head of state is very happy with the progress of the cooperation project between our two countries. Taking the example of vaccine cooperation, we can say that it is a flagship of our cooperation.
At least 12 people have died after two separate tornadoes ripped through east and central China on Friday night. 4 of the deaths and 19 injuries happened in the eastern city of Suzhou, and 8 people were killed in the central city of Wuhan. Our reporter Zhou Jiexin talked to some survivors in Wuhan.
The tornado hit the workers' sheds in suburban Wuhan without any warning, raising them to the ground within seconds. One man working the evening shift had to hide inside an empty storage tank at the construction site 200 meters away.
It was quite loud. Cars outside were thrown all over the place. It was quite a mess. When the rain stopped, we ran out to search for our colleagues. One of them was critically injured, and we carried him to the road so our director could bring us to this hospital.
The strong gale, packing winds of nearly 24 meters per second, destroyed 2 tower cranes and a total of 8,000 square meters of construction site sheds. Rescue efforts continue throughout the night in this industrial area where the waste treatment plant where Tsai works was the worst affected facility.
Hundreds of rescue personnel, including firefighters and medical staff, arrived soon after the accident. We've been cleaning this area after completing the work searching for survivors early in the morning.
Such a disaster has seldom happened in Wuhan. It was distressing. Some patients were in a state of shock. We've given them some psychological support, which has been helpful. We've also prepared clothes, daily necessities, as they were just wearing their sleeping clothes when the tornado arrived.
Tornado is not often seen here in China, though it happens every year in coastal and inland cities. Authorities said that we'll step up alert and response efforts with relevant departments. Zhou Jiaxin, CGTN, Wuhan.
China has received worldwide praise for successfully landing on Mars. The unnamed spacecraft carrying a rover touched down on the 4th planet from the Sun on Saturday morning. Successful missions to Mars are considered incredibly challenging due to the planet's harsh temperature and environment. Director of the Shallow Sky section of the Astronomical Society of Southern Africa, Clyde Foster, says given the odds, this is an incredible achievement.
We've seen that over the years, there has been only about a 50% success rate for all the missions that have gone to Mars. So for this to be the first mission from China, where they have successfully put the spacecraft into orbit and then deployed the rover successfully down to the surface is an incredible achievement. The conditions for achieving a successful landing are incredibly challenging. With the type of atmosphere that we have on Mars, it's a very thin atmosphere. We obviously have wind conditions. There's always the risk of dust storms on Mars. I think the best type of synergistic picture that I can paint is the Apollo missions to the moon. Mankind is forever pushing back new frontiers. And the field of planetary science and planetary exploration is a classic example. We are pushing back the boundaries of humankind, and we've already been to the moon, and we saw the effect that had on humankind. And now we are pushing out into the solar system. And as I mentioned a little bit earlier, the fact is that hopefully within the next 10 years or so, we will be seeing humans on Mars. We are exploring and trying to understand where we have come from. And Mars is the most habitable planet compared with Earth that we have in the solar system.
It's just taken me completely out of my depth, but at the same time it's exciting. It's new, it's different, it's a challenge.
It's really exciting.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN.
You don't find the stories of North Africa by sitting on the sidelines.
You've got to get out, go there, and you'll find them. In the bazaars of Casablanca, among the crowds in Cairo,
who come to visit Cairo, the ancient capital of Egypt.
Along the waters of the Nile, along the sands of the Sahara. No one else will take you where we can in North Africa. No one else will show you what it's all about. CGTN, see the difference.
The air in Kenya's capital, Nairobi, is polluted by emissions from cars, buses and conventional fossil-fueled three-wheelers, commonly known as tuk-tuks. But one man in Kenya is seeking to have pollution cut significantly after starting to produce electric tuk-tuks and handcarts locally. CGTN's Enoch Sokolia met with the creator, Kenneth Gwantai, to find out more.
My name is Kenneth Gwantai. I work with the National Youth Service at the end of research and innovation. The projects you see here started just as an idea on how to revolutionize the conventional fossil fuel three-wheelers we have in Kenya and across Africa. We realized that there is a lot of problems that is encountered by the users of the conventional fossil fuel tuk-tuk, in that it uses fossil fuel, which is very expensive for them. Secondly, the tuk-tuk that we have in our market pollute the environment through carbon emissions. Thirdly, the tuk-tuk we have a low loading capacity. They carry 3 passengers. Now, the solution we have is an electric tuk-tuk. The benefits are our tuk-tuk has more rounding capacity than the conventional fossil fuel tuk-tuk in that it carries 6 passengers. The other thing is that it has a rounding capacity of 1.5 ton, meaning it is more powerful than the conventional tuk-tuk. The third thing is that it does not pollute the environment because it is purely electric. And on top of that, we went ahead to invent a system that will enable our tuk-tuk to self-recharge while in motion. If you look at the conventional manual handcart we have in our town today and cities today, you realize that they are all associated with masculinity. It means if you don't have enough strength, you cannot be able to push or pull them. But now, the electric handcart we have is more powerful because you don't need to push or pull. All what you need to do is drive as you walk.
Cocoa farmers across Cote d'Ivoire remain disheartened after prices for their commodity have fallen for the second year running. The West African country is the world's biggest producer of the key ingredient for chocolate. However, growers in one village have turned to organic cocoa farming in efforts to revive the industry and provide a more environmentally friendly option to international markets. CGTN's Joy Kirukijuma reports.
In Mburimbo, a village in central Cote d'Ivoire, organic cocoa farming has been ongoing for the past 11 years. A local farmers' cooperative society assists growers to sell their produce at twice the market rate for non-organic cocoa. Equitable, a French company that specializes in marketing fair trade products, has invested in purchasing their harvest.
They have very good quality cocoa that is recognized internationally. We were able to dismantle the cliché that Ivorian cocoa is of poor quality. We were able to demonstrate here that when the growers are trained, master their art, and are well paid for this additional work, we are quite capable of making very good cocoa in Cote d'Ivoire.
Farmers weed their fields manually and have developed specific methods to dry and ferment cocoa beans.
When you know the cocoa is consumed, we make chocolate with it. We have to make it natural. I am sincerely proud of this. Even so, outside my village, I tell them that I do organic. They ask me questions like, what is organic? And I explain to them.
An emerging concern in Cote d'Ivoire is about the health impact for farmers who use conventional chemicals to fertilize the soil and kill pests. The cooperative's farmers are testing safer formulas made from residues derived from locally grown plants.
Organic farming is difficult because we don't use herbicides. All the work is done with machetes, and we do not treat the cocoa with chemicals. Organic cocoa, in fact, requires more work, but it is still worth it financially, also for health reasons, because by not using chemicals, there's already health benefits.
The chocolate made from their cocoa is exported and sold in French supermarkets.
When we started, we saw the importance of being able to grow organic, and we saw what organic has brought to us. At the beginning, I had a bicycle. Today I can build a house and I have a motorcycle. There has been a change in my life. I was able to send my children to school as they should be.
Organic chocolate accounts for just 8% of the national market, but is growing at 18% per year. 10 other cooperatives in Cote d'Ivoire now produce organic cocoa, and others are expected to follow suit. Joy Kirukijuma, CGTN.
There's been a debate for years about how books are disappearing in the digital age. In China, that may not necessarily be the case. Physical bookshops are making a comeback across the country as the government tries to encourage reading. Yang Jinghao reports.
This bookstore in southwest China's Chengdu city has been attracting visitors with its unique design, which integrates elements of the renowned Dujiangyan irrigation project. It was opened in September and offers all sorts of cultural products.
We've tried to impress visitors with the store's exterior design, but we also hope they enjoy our selection of books and cultural and creative products, as well as our service, so that they spend more time here and end up buying our products.
But this is much more than a simple bookshop. The multifunctional space also serves as a place for reading, socializing, and family activities, among others.
This is a reading space we jointly created with the local government and the city's library. Apart from reading here for free, people can also borrow books with a valid identity document and return them at any designated site.
Reports say more than 1,500 bookstores closed in 2020, partly due to the COVID-19 epidemic, but some 4,000 new ones opened, with more than 100 in Chengdu. Official data shows that Chengdu has more than 3,600 bookstores and reading facilities, outnumbering any other Chinese city. Behind this is the city government's strong support for the development of this cultural sector.
We set up a special fund in 2016 to support brick-and-mortar bookstores, allocating 7 million yuan each year. A new store can get a maximum subsidy of 500,000 yuan. We also encourage bookstores to create innovative projects, which will also be rewarded.
For businesses, what's more important is to keep exploring new business models under market pressure, especially the competition from e-commerce platforms, which usually offer handsome discounts.
We plan more than 300 culture events each year to enrich people's experience in our store. We also actively participate in the city's initiative to boost consumption and revive the industry by distributing coupons and offering discounts. We will introduce more similar measures in the future.
We plan to hold various activities in schools, neighborhoods, and government departments to promote reading among different groups.
Many people are happy to see bookstores growing in their city. They hope there will be more physical stores as the government pushes forward its national book reading campaign. Yang Jinghao, CGTN, Chengdu, Sichuan Province.
Join us in global business and see Africa through our eyes.
The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Peninah, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival, and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
You're watching breaking news on CGTN.
Welcome to the world today on CGTN.
Welcome Welcome back to Africa Live. A trio of Kenyan entrepreneurs is transforming the lives of artisans by creating an online marketplace for their crafts. Built as a one-stop shop for African handicrafts, the digital platform is seeking to reach a global market. CGTN's Wukiste Nyabwa has this story.
Bead by painstaking bead, Kimani Nderitu is creating an elaborate work of art. These are skills he has honed over years of practice as an artist. He paints and carves and molds and sculpts. Nothing involving art is too difficult for him to learn. And this year he has acquired even more skills as he ventured into the world of online sales. The Culture Hub by Muthoni Unchained is an online marketplace started by 3 Kenyan friends with a love of authentic African pieces. They often went hunting for them in street markets.
It got to a point where you buy these items and sell them to your colleagues. So we saw an opportunity and a hunger for these items, but people can't easily access them.
Some of the vendors whose work they loved lived in far-flung places, and when COVID-19 struck, disrupting the local markets, the need for an online marketplace to connect artists, vendors and buyers became even more urgent.
Before Corona, the market was good. All you need to do is to come with new art, very creative and very unique, and people are there to achieve it and to accept it. So after Corona, and then everything stopped.
Where there are so many artisans or so many vendors dealing in fashion, art items in Africa, but they didn't have a platform where they could access a lot of consumers.
The online crafts marketplace brings together artisans as well as raw material providers, enabling the group to negotiate fair prices for raw materials as well as loan services. Artists create accounts, upload pieces, and watch them sell. Over 100 vendors and artisans have signed up.
What I normally receive is that, oh, Kimani, bring a certain picture, somebody wants it, I deliver, it goes. So this is one of the market that I would love myself very much.
It means sellers can now access markets beyond the country's borders.
Our biggest customers have been in Denmark and Germany, where we sell to boutiques there who resell African items. We sell to them in wholesale.
Artists continue to long for the day when the pandemic will end and they will be able to go back to the markets that they are accustomed to. But even after they return, online platforms will continue to play an important role, taking their artworks to the world. Wukiste Nyabwa, CGTN in Nairobi, Kenya.
And coming up in sports, Uganda hopeful of successful Olympics with increased number of athletes.
How would you create your legend? On the fields, on the tracks, in the arenas of Africa. Were you born to be a player? Could this moment be yours? Sports Scene. Find your game.
Uganda has emerged as a dominant force in distance running, and the resumption of athletics in the country is helping to identify more running talent. With the Tokyo Summer Games fast approaching, the East African nation could land their biggest medal haul in their Olympics history, as CGTN's Leon Senyange reports.
Off to yet another race. It's been a long wait for many of these athletes to get back on track. For Dismas Yeko, the time out since the suspension of sports due to the COVID